This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. The feud between Donald Trump and the liberal mayors in New York and Portland just got hotter. The president has ordered officials to find ways to cut federal funding to Democrat-controlled cities that have not brought riots under control. Dale Hurd has the story.
In a 5-page memo sent to federal agencies, the president ordered officials to begin the process of defunding New York City, Portland, Seattle, and Washington, cities where officials allowed violent protests while cutting police budgets. In the memo, Trump said, "My administration will not allow federal tax dollars to fund cities that allow themselves to deteriorate into lawless zones." The president later tweeted that his administration will do everything in its power to prevent weak mayors in lawless cities taking federal dollars while they let anarchists harm people, burn buildings, and ruin lives and businesses. We're putting them on notice today. An outraged New York Governor Andrew Cuomo labeled it a political stunt.
He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York. He can't have enough bodyguards to walk through New York City.
But New York City Councilman Joe Borelli tweeted about Cuomo's comment, half the NYPD would volunteer for Trump's security detail, even on their day off, whereas it's common knowledge that the governor's own state trooper detail has long hated him. With his lead over Trump slowly evaporating, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden headed to Kenosha, Wisconsin today to meet with the family of Jacob Blake, the black man killed in a struggle with police.
We got to heal. We got to put things together, bring people together.
With polling suggesting his campaign is being damaged by the continued rioting, Biden has also been posturing as the law and order candidate. But Trump accused Democrats of refusing his help in restoring order.
All they have to do is say, "Please come in, Mr. President. We'll have it done in 1 hour."
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Now to the latest with the coronavirus pandemic. The CDC sent a letter to all 50 states urging them to be prepared for a vaccine by November 1st, much earlier than experts believe one will be ready. This as the U.S. death toll nears 186,000. But some good news. The latest FEMA memo reports in the 7-day period from August 26th to September 1st, the number of new deaths in the U.S. have decreased. Meanwhile, members of the coronavirus task force continue to urge people to avoid large gatherings. There has been the first death linked to the massive South Dakota motorcycle rally in Sturgis last month. Hundreds of positive COVID-19 cases in several states have been traced back to that rally. This as schools and colleges are still struggling to manage COVID outbreaks. The University of Georgia reported 821 new cases compared to just 189 the week before.
I'm just not sure that being face-to-face in most cases is helpful or necessary at this point.
The pandemic is also continuing its toll on the economy. The national debt is at its highest level since World War II and on pace to exceed the size of our economy, meaning the amount the government owes will be greater than the total goods and services produced in an entire year. CBN's Jenna Browder brings us the story from Washington.
The Congressional Budget Office says the federal debt is expected to reach or exceed 100% of the gross domestic product. The last time we saw this happen was back in 1946, after years of military spending to win World War II. The cause now, massive stimulus spending and reduced tax revenue in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Policymakers approving roughly $2.7 trillion in spending since March. At the same time, federal revenue fell 10% from April through June compared to a year earlier. What's more, from March to June, the debt swelled by 16%, nearly $3 trillion. Economists say that stimulus was necessary to keep the economy afloat, and more is needed. Dr. Stephen Skanke is Chief Economic Advisor at the wealth management and investment firm Keel Point.
Right now, it's a boost that helps keep the economy recovering and certainly keeps stock markets soaring.
But in the long term, it's harmful to economic growth.
It tends to impede economic growth. The expected rate of annual economic growth will just be less.
The gap expected to grow as Congress and the White House eye another round of stimulus. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says he's willing to sit down with Congress and negotiate a new spending bill to help struggling families and businesses. But the price tag is an issue. House Democrats say they'll settle for a $2.2 trillion bailout, more than twice the amount of a Republican bill in the Senate.
I do not support $2.2 trillion, but what's more important is what is the breakdown in getting money to American workers, American families, kids, where we can agree on money.
Despite a struggling economy, the stock market is going strong, and positive news on the vaccine front Wednesday pushed it even higher. After the CDC notified states to be ready for a vaccine by November, the Dow closed over 29,000 points for the first time since February. The S&P and NASDAQ also hit new highs. The exploding national debt could have severe long-term consequences, turning the U.S. into a debtor nation. The debt dragging down the economy and affecting our standard of living, and possibly weakening other countries' perception of the dollar, eventually ending its role as the reserve currency of the world. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
In other news, the Chinese embassy in the U.S. is urging the U.S. to revoke its restriction on Chinese diplomatic and consular personnel. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Wednesday the State Department has, quote, established a mechanism requiring approval for senior Chinese diplomats in the United States to visit university campuses and to meet with local government officials. In a statement, the embassy called the move unjust and a mistake and said China has always supported and provided necessary facilitation for foreign personnel. And for more political coverage, be sure to tune in to Faith Nation this evening for the latest from our nation's capital. The multiple benefits of the Israel peace deal with the United Arab Emirates are still unfolding. After a historic meeting in Abu Dhabi this week between U.S. and Israeli officials and leaders of the UAE, including the Crown Prince of the UAE, says he wants to visit Jerusalem. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
For the first time ever, Saudi Arabia said it was opening its skies to all flights to and from the United Arab Emirates. The document didn't name Israel specifically, but comes just days after President Trump's senior advisor Jared Kushner and other U.S. officials flew with an Israeli delegation on the first direct flight to the UAE. Saudi Arabia allowed that flight to travel through its airspace. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the announcement as a tremendous breakthrough and benefit of genuine peace.
Israeli planes and those from all countries will be able to fly directly from Israel to Abu Dhabi and Dubai and back. Flights will be cheaper and shorter, and it will lead to robust tourism and develop our economy.
And according to All Arab News, the UAE's Crown Prince wants to visit Jerusalem. That's because he says he wants a comprehensive peace with Israel and her people. Egyptian President al-Sisi also backed the deal, but said he is still committed to the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. That's the sentiment echoed by Saudi Arabia and others, including the UAE.
UAE stance will remain supportive of the Arab stance, calling for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital.
The UAE deal is also having an impact on Israel's domestic policy. Kushner said as part of the deal, Israel would not annex the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria for now.
Israel's agreed to suspend the annexation, or to suspend applying Israeli law to those areas for the time being, but in the future it's a discussion that I'm sure will be had.
Those assurances haven't been enough for Iran or the Palestinians, who said the UAE was stabbing the Palestinian people in the back. But while Iran and the Palestinians are angry over the deal, many Arab countries are not. Kushner met with other Gulf leaders, and in Abu Dhabi, he sounded a hopeful note.
A lot of people want access to the technology and economy and a lot of the different advancements that Israel has. I mean, Israel's like another Silicon Valley for the Middle East here, and they're open for business, and they're very excited to interact with the Arab and Muslim world.
Israel is hoping to sign the official accord with the UAE in Washington by mid-September. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, how states across the country are stepping up in the fight against child sex trafficking.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Welcome back. While the election and pandemic have much of the media's attention, authorities in states across the country are working to find missing kids who may be victims of sex trafficking. In the last few weeks, major recoveries of dozens of children have already happened. In Ohio, authorities are working on what's called Operation Safety Net through the month of October. 25 children ages 13 to 18 were rescued in less than 3 weeks. And just days before, the U.S. Marshals Service announced the rescue of 39 endangered children in Georgia under Operation Not Forgotten. 9 suspects were arrested on sex trafficking charges in that case. And joining us now for more is Yaku Boyens with the Falkirk Center. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, CBN.
How familiar are you with these cases? What more can you tell us about these recovery operations?
Very familiar. We're in this fight, have been in this fight for 26 years, and trafficking in the U.S. is very prevalent. These are well executed, multidisciplinary and multi-unit actions that were taken by U.S. Marshals Service, but local law enforcement and non-government organizations on the ground. And we're seeing a strong push because the administration is supporting these law enforcement agencies to help the NGOs in the fight against child trafficking.
How do state and local level efforts like this compare to what's happening at a national level to combat trafficking?
At a national level, top down, look, you're always going to have to fight this hyper local. You can mandate certain things nationally. The president signed an executive order that's allowed the FBI to receive funding and really empower them and unlock something such as the U.S. Marshals Service to go and fight it from a national holistic perspective. There's a lot of legislative change at the moment, particularly in restorative care. Once these children are being rescued, they have to go somewhere. They can't just go straight home because there's massive amounts of trauma involved. So from a holistic point of view, federally, there's an oversight going on in how do we tackle this thing as a whole, but it has to be fought locally with local PD, local organizations with some national support.
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children said in 2019 they reported more than 421,000 missing children to the FBI. What is the biggest factor behind these trafficking rings?
Look, it's different. kids get trafficked different in different geographical areas, and the crime doesn't profile. It doesn't care about race, gender, class, socioeconomic status. Literally any child that looks vulnerable to a profiler or a predator is a soft target. Unfortunately, the fastest rising trend in the crime, as we saw with the last two stings, is what's called familial trafficking, parents trafficking their own children. And that is also the most difficult aspect of the crime to fight, because that child is living at home, maybe in a foster situation, but at home, goes to school, interacts with community, but is being sold as a sex traffic, victim. So that's a very difficult fight to fight.
Wow, that's hideous to hear about that. What can parents do to keep their children safe?
Parents really have to engage. Look, we're in a situation where there's a propensity towards moral fluidity in our country. We need to be a country on Judeo-Christian values and biblical values in the home. Fathers have to be home. You have to engage. You have to have these conversations with your children. They should not be having a conversation for attention and affirmation online. It has to come through the parent, and discipline is important. But parents have to engage. We can no longer pacify our children with technology. This is where they're being trafficked. This is where they're being profiled. And parents, please engage. You need to know who your child is talking to. And if the child feels like you're a helicopter parent, be the helicopter parent. Rather, be a parent that's engaged and keep a child safe than a parent who's saying, help me find my child.
All right, very well said. Yaku Boyens with the Falkirk Center. Thank you very much for your time and your information on this important subject.
Thank you.
Still ahead, are we seeing an assault upon America as professional protesters have been traveling from city to city during the recent violence amid protests? We'll hear why one cultural expert believes the answer is yes. That's when we come back.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Catholic Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Is the recent outbreak of violence in U.S. cities really a well-organized coup attempt against America? The Department of Justice is investigating who may be funding the rioters, many of whom travel from city to city. Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, culture and religion analyst Alex McFarland likens what is happening in our country today to an act of war.
I think part of the reasons that we've been seeing the riots and part of the reason that the rioters and the anarchists have had really a velvet glove free ride by much of the secular media is because there are those that want America to fall, and they know that to introduce new order, they first have to create disorder. And that's what this is about. And we are witnessing really an act of war. I mean, we are witnessing a coup attempt in the United States of America. That's why people need to stay informed by listening to CBN. They need to pray, and they need to vote and be an influence, because the future of our country quite literally hangs in the balance.
Alex, we're seeing attacks like this one. I guess people on Instagram said it happened in Baltimore, but it's hard to watch. A young Satanist hitting an innocent pedestrian in the head with a brick for no apparent reason. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a mugging. People see that and they say, what is happening in our society? You can't even walk down a street without getting hit in the head with a brick.
Well, yeah. And as attendees from the Republican National Convention were leaving, they were accosted, they were attacked. Rand Paul is very well publicized. He is saying, and many others finally are coming around to saying, look, this is an assault on our nation. Our freedoms hang in the balance. Not 24 hours ago in Los Angeles, at the LAPD, in front of one of the doors of Los Angeles Police Department, they burned a flag on the sidewalk, and they spray painted things that I can't even repeat. But one of the acronyms, ACAB, all cops are bastards. Forgive me for using that word, but you've got to understand these people are the operatives for Marxists that want American cities to fall, and they want ultimately our Constitution to be deposed and done away with.
We used to have civil discourse and debate. We'd listen to one another, and then we'd compromise to come up with workable solutions to our problems. It seems like there's no longer a willingness to compromise, Alex. It's my way or the highway. How did we get to this point?
Well, you know, fundamentally, our battles are not social, economic, or political. Our battles are spiritual. We are very much in a spiritual battle. I mean, clearly, our nation was founded as a Judeo-Christian republic. That's been so well documented. But I want to say this. As a pastor and a counselor, when I've had to do family interventions and someone is caught in unrepentant sin, we can do the wise thing and humble ourselves before God. But very often people that are doing wrong, and they know they're doing wrong, they will dig in their heels and be all the more recalcitrant and just fight. And the people that for the last 45 years have been about no-fault divorce and the breakup of families and unrestricted abortion and life is not sacred and the redefinition of marriage, the people that have worked hard to abolish our awareness of a Judeo-Christian moral code, they are really enraged. I know I've spoken at universities and been very scholarly, and yet I've had students and professors give me the middle finger. That doesn't bother me. It's just acknowledgement of the human nature that when we're fighting the Spirit of God, God calling us to repent, we can either stand on the rock or stumble over it. And that's why the acrimony, that's why the vitriol, because there are people in our country, and I love them, and I pray for them, but they know they need to relinquish their life to the Lord.
And in your book, you talk about defending our nation and culture before it's too late. A lot of people are getting fed up. Some are even taking up arms to protect themselves and their property because police have been defunded. So quickly, what do we do short of armed militias?
Part of what makes this so tenuous and why this is the most consequential election in our lifetime is because so many millennials, even Christian millennials, have never lived in a time when America was affirmed and valued. And so we've got this wave of humanity coming along that's been coached and groomed by secular education and Hollywood to hate America. And so I really honestly believe this is the most important election, the most important season of our nation's history since the American Revolution. And we need to turn to God and ask him to have mercy on this country and draw us back to himself.
That's what we need a lot of right now. Alex McFarland, you always give us plenty to think about. Your new book is The Assault on America, How to Defend Our Nation Before It's Too Late. Thank you, Alex, for your time and insights.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
For a look at other important issues in the news, tune into The Global Lane. It's tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. After the break, one extreme stuntman's latest adventure and how he managed to pull it off.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to CBN.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
A well-known Daredevil performed his latest stunt yesterday, ascending nearly 25,000 feet into the Arizona sky while hanging from a cluster of jumbo-sized helium balloons.
Wow! That was awesome!
The so-called extreme performer David Blaine set off at around 7 a.m. from Page, Arizona, gradually dropping small weights to speed up his ascent into the air, where he floated across the desert for about 30 minutes. He reached an altitude of 29,400 feet, slightly higher than Mount Everest. Breathing out of an oxygen mask as he got higher, Blaine eventually released himself from the balloon cluster and free fell for some 30 seconds before deploying a parachute to slow his descent. Wow, that's not for me, but that is an incredible feat. A little bizarre, too. Well, that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with CBNNews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.